Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. On the 5th anniversary of Grace and Marcus' relationship, he booked the best manor in Emerald City and invited all their mutual friends to celebrate. He was so moved that tears streamed down his face, and he knelt before her, proposing with deep affection. Amidst cheers and envious murmurs, the engagement ring was placed on her ring finger. Just then, a pure and innocent-looking college girl pushed the door open and said with a sweet, guileless expression, "I'm so sorry. I've come into the wrong private room." Grace clearly saw Marcus's expression suddenly change. He made a flimsy excuse and hurried out. Grace nodded with a faint smile, not stopping him. After he left, Grace slowly took off the engagement ring and with an impassive expression made a phone call. "Mom and Dad, I agreed to the strategic alliance marriage. I'll be home in 5 days to inherit the family fortune." When she was with Marcus, he was just a penniless young man. To protect his pride, Grace hid her identity as the heir to a billionaire fortune, helping him start from scratch. He had been incredibly thoughtful and attentive to her for years, personally handling every aspect of their lives, from food and clothing to housing and transport, terrified that she might suffer even the slightest grievance. When he achieved success, he even happily declared in front of all the reporters, "My fiancée is the only light in my dark life." Without her trust and support, there would be no Marcus today. The host, barely concealing his envy, asked, "I hear you named the company Come Enterprises, also because of your fiancée." Marcus never concealed his favoritism and affection for Grace in front of outsiders. Hearing this, he looked at the camera with even more tenderness. "The QM in QM Enterprises is from my name, Marcus, and the Q is from Grace's name. Our company name is tightly bound together, just as Grace and I will be together forever and ever." The venue immediately erupted in warm applause, and many audience members shed tears of emotion. Even the host's eyes sparkled with romantic envy. For a long time, their deeply romantic love story was widely circulated online. Not only did he give Grace a large portion of the company shares, but Marcus was also always by her side at any important event. If any man came near Grace, he would be jealous for a long time. Wishing he could attach a camera to her, he possessively demanded that her eyes be only for him. Everyone outside knew he loved Grace to her very core, to the point of a crazed obsession. Everyone around Grace was also incredibly envious, thinking her life was truly blessed with a husband whose career was soaring, and who was so devoted and loyal. But they didn't know that Marcus' mistress had sent Grace countless intimate photos, each one wild, each one in a different position. Even before Marcus proposed, she had sent Grace a message, every word filled with provocation. "What does it matter if you and Marcus, darling, have been in love for 5 years? What does it matter if you helped him start from scratch? You're too boring. He no longer has love for you, only gratitude. Believe me, I can summon him with just a look to be with me." After that, Grace gazed at the words "successful" written on top of the tall cake, unable to snap out of her daze. The current Marcus possessed wealth and power, with swarms of admirers lining up for him. In truth, Grace understood the temptations of this circle better than he did. Before this woman appeared, Grace naively believed he was different from others. Who knew? She still lost her bet, so she lost. What did it matter? As for a dog that eats its own vomit, Grace had no desire for him. Half an hour later, Marcus returned, glistening with a light sweat and carrying the lingering scent of a decadent perfume. "Grace, I'm so sorry. Something unexpected came up at the company that I had to handle, making you wait for half an hour." He looked apologetic, raising his hand as if to tenderly caress her cheek. Grace subtly dodged his touch, utterly disgusted. "Oh, so you feel bad for Grace waiting half an hour, but all of us have been waiting just as long, and we haven't seen you feel bad for us." Marcus chuckled, scolding lightly, and when he looked down at Grace, his tender gaze was so overflowing it seemed to drip with affection. "No matter how envious you are, it's no use. I will always be Grace's alone for all lifetimes." Grace's lips curled into a sarcastic smile. Looking up, she saw faint hickeys peeking out from his collar. Even though he tried to cover some of them with concealer, making them more obvious, one didn't need to look closely to notice the distinct difference from the surrounding skin tone. This was that woman's flaunting. It seemed like the past half hour had been quite intense. Is half an hour really enough? Grace suddenly spoke softly. Or perhaps you should go again. At that moment, a fleeting awkwardness crossed Marcus's face. He looked at Grace somewhat nervously. Sweetie, are you angry? Grace forced a smile that looked natural. You haven't done anything wrong to me. Why would I be angry? How could I ever do anything to hurt you? You're the only one in my heart. Everyone knows that. Amidst a chorus of envious and teasing remarks, he tenderly took Grace's hand only to find her ring finger bare. The engagement ring was gone. His expression immediately turned frantic. Grace, where's the ring? Why is it gone? Grace feigned confusion. Didn't you take the ring? Perhaps his earnest demeanor, coupled with his own guilty conscience, led Marcus to mistakenly believe he truly had taken the ring. As he frantically searched every one of his pockets and found nothing, Grace's tone was calm. Could you have accidentally lost it during the half hour you were out? His expression stiffened for a moment. Then he immediately forced himself to look at Grace calmly. I'll go back and look for it. Will you wait for me a little longer? Grace smiled faintly. If it's lost, it's lost. No need to look for it, she added. Not like I can't afford another ring. Marcus's eyes suddenly widened. He had personally crafted this wedding ring, staying up for several nights. Engraved inside the band were the words, Chin is the heart of Yenjo. The inscription meant that Grace was Marcus's heart. Without her he couldn't survive. Grace, it's my fault. I'm useless. I even lost something so important. His 6-foot-tall frame bent down, pulling Grace tightly into his arms as if afraid she might suddenly vanish. Don't worry, I'll have an identical ring made for you. Please don't be angry. I'm so scared when you're angry. Grace rested her chin on his shoulder, suppressing the pain in her chest, and slightly closed her eyes. Marcus, there's no need. The music in the private room was loud, and he hadn't heard clearly. What did you just say? He asked. Grace turned her face away, avoiding his touch, her eyes dull. Nothing. Seeing her slow spirits, Marcus took her out before the engagement party ended. It was windy outside, so he immediately took off his suit jacket and wrapped Grace snugly in it. Then Marcus went to get the car. Grace's phone vibrated. Another text message came in. The background showed the Manor's restroom. A girl with a slip strap on her shoulder, her hand suggestively woven through Marcus's hair, sharing a deep kiss. The scene was incredibly provocative. The caption read, This time it's your engagement party. Where will it be next? Grace thought her heart would still ache, but at that moment, perhaps from extreme numbness, she felt absolutely nothing. Marcus pulled the car up in front of Grace, got out, and opened the passenger door. A playful girl walked up to them, tilting her head and asking, Sir, I'm heading back to school. Would it be possible to get a lift? Grace turned her head, clearly seeing Marcus' face turn pale for a moment. He quickly shielded Grace as if afraid the girl might do something detrimental to her. No, it's not convenient. He refused the girl immediately without thinking. Chloe didn't take the warning in his eyes seriously. Instead, she put her hands together, turned to Grace, and pleaded pitifully. Grace, I've had quite a bit to drink, and it's too dangerous near the bar. Could you please give me a ride? Please, please. Grace's gaze swept over her casually, noting the marks on her neck and not missing the challenge in her eyes. Unlike bright and generous demeanor, Chloe was like plain water with a slight hint of tears in her eyelashes. Anyone would feel sympathy for her to their core. Pure and coy on the surface, fiery and seductive in bed. Indeed, Marcus was no exception to the laws of men. Grace merely glanced at her, then looked away and said, It's up to him. After all, it wasn't Grace's car, so she naturally had no right to choose who it carried. Grace went straight to the back seat and closed her eyes to rest. Marcus walked over and discussed with Grace, a helpless look on his face. Baby, it's too late now and it's really hard to find a taxi. Plus, it's a bit dangerous for a girl to stay here alone. How about we give her a ride? It's on our way to the university district anyway. Grace opened her eyes and looked at him with a half smile. When did you become so kind? Seeing her cold gaze, he immediately tried to soothe her, treating her subtle emotions as if they were paramount. If you're unhappy, I'll turn her down right now and let her take a taxi back. He then added somewhat transparently, Anyway, other people's lives and deaths have nothing to do with us. We just need to live our own lives well. Grace had never realized Marcus was such a good actor. He had been with Chloe countless times, yet he could still act as if she were a stranger to this extent. Grace closed her eyes deeply, devoid of emotion. It is indeed dangerous for such a pretty girl to take a taxi alone. Seeing her relent, Marcus seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, rubbing her hair with his palm. "Baby, you're still so kind." Grace gave a self-deprecating smile. She hoped he would still think that when he found out she sold the shares. Marcus wanted Grace to sit in the passenger seat, but she didn't move. Chloe keenly slipped in, sitting in the passenger seat with the air of a hostess. "Get out. Only I sit in my passenger seat." Marcus unhappily pulled her out. Chloe pitifully leaned against the car window. "Grace, look how stingy Marcus is. You wouldn't be so stingy, would you?" Then in a very low voice she provoked Grace. "After all, we even share a man, let alone a passenger seat. Wouldn't you say, Grace?" Grace looked at her indifferently. Chloe blinked innocently at Grace, then began to flirt with Marcus. "Marcus, see, Grace didn't even refuse me." She then quickly slipped back into the passenger seat. Marcus looked at Grace apologetically. She had already closed her eyes again to rest. Such clumsy acting. Even another glance would be an insult to her eyes. In the car, Chloe saw a photo of them together and couldn't hide the jealousy in her tone. "Grace, thank you for giving me a lift. Your husband is truly blessed to have such a wonderful woman like you." As he drove, his peripheral vision constantly watched Grace's expression in the rearview mirror. Grace's gaze was fixed on the window outside, her face devoid of expression. Chloe was unwilling to let Marcus only pay attention to Grace. So she said, somewhat losing composure and with a hint of sarcasm, "Grace, may I ask for your secret to a happy marriage?" As she heard this, Grace's phone vibrated. She opened WhatsApp and it was intimate photos from Chloe. Grace stared at the screen. The image showed Marcus and Chloe tightly entangled. This was immediately followed by another WhatsApp message from Chloe. "Do you know how obsessed Marcus darling is with me? As of today, we've used 150 condoms in total. Once he was so eager he didn't even have time to put one on. And I couldn't bear to spoil his mood. So I just let him. Perhaps I might even be carrying his baby now. Grace, if I were you, I'd just break up with him and give up your place by Marcus's side. After all, Marcus darling's body and heart are both with me. You've only been with him for 5 years. He no longer loves you. Won't you just let us be together?" Grace looked up at her. Chloe, sitting in the front passenger seat, playfully shook her phone and smiled cutely. Marcus, who was driving, saw Grace's bad expression and immediately slowed down. "Grace, are you feeling unwell? Should we go to the city hospital?" Grace did not show him the WhatsApp message. Emerald City was his territory. Once left, he would surely seal off Emerald City and bring her back. By then it would be difficult for Grace to escape. She only wanted to reclaim what was hers, quietly end this relationship, and avoid any unnecessary struggle with him. "I'm fine." No sooner had Grace spoken than an out-of-control truck came speeding towards them against traffic. Marcus reacted quickly, swerving hard to avoid the truck's impact. Unfortunately, amidst the world spinning, there was the sound of a tire blowing out, and the car flipped onto its side. All 3 of them were trapped under the car, with Chloe's incessant screams filling their ears and Aunt's heart-wrenching cries. "Grace, Grace!" He kicked open the car door and crawled out of the smoke-filled vehicle. Grace's head had taken a blow. Her vision, blurred by blood, was indistinct. Chloe was crying incessantly, very loudly. "Marcus, save me. Save me quickly." Marcus paid her no mind, frantically shouting Grace's name, rushing towards her as if he had lost his mind. "Grace, hold on. I'm coming to save you." Even though his hands were cut by broken glass, flesh exposed, he disregarded it, forcefully prying open the deformed passenger door and dragging Grace out. Seeing the blood gushing from Grace's forehead, he, with bloodshot eyes, tremblingly pulled her tightly into his embrace. "Grace, Grace, wake up and look at me. Don't scare me like this. It's my fault for not protecting you." Passers-by collectively helped rescue Chloe from the car. Her dress was torn during the rescue. Unable to conceal the hickeys covering her body, Grace found it somewhat amusing. Marcus carefully picked Grace up, placed her in the ambulance, and then got in himself. Chloe's face was a mixture of blue and white, and she was crying uncontrollably, gasping for breath. He glanced back, then withdrew his gaze. When Grace woke up, she was already lying in the city hospital. Groggily, she opened her eyes and saw Marcus sleeping exhaustedly by her hand, still in the clothes he wore during the car accident. Grace frowned and pulled her hand away. Marcus immediately opened his eyes, and when he rose to hug her, his eyes gleamed and his voice was choked with emotion, unable to speak. "You scared me to death, Grace. Thank goodness you're okay. Thank goodness. If anything had happened to you, I would never forgive myself for the rest of my life." He clung to Grace, muttering incessantly as if he had lost half his soul. Even the nurse who came in to change Grace's dressing couldn't help but envy her for having such a wonderful fiancé. Marcus was like a man who had lost his soul. He wouldn't even let his own wounds be treated, insisting on waiting outside the emergency room until he saw that you were safe and sound. He stayed by your side for an entire day and night without rest. Marcus had stubble on his chin and heavy dark circles under his eyes. Grace looked at him expressionlessly and asked, "How is Miss Chloe?" Marcus's expression stiffened for a moment, then quickly returned to normal. "She's just a stranger. Why bother with her? The most important thing now is for you to recover, Mark." His phone vibrated in his pocket. Seeing the caller ID, his gaze flickered. Then he tenderly stroked Grace's face. "You must be hungry. I'll go out and get you some soup. You get some rest first." After he left, Grace followed him all the way to a hospital room downstairs. From inside came Chloe's cries. "If you don't care about me, why did you sleep with me? Marcus, you bastard. In the accident, you only thought about Grace and didn't care whether I lived or died. I hate you." She frantically pounded on his chest. Marcus impatiently gripped her hands. "Grace is the only one I love and she will be my wife. Haven't I told you this before? If you want to end this, then end it any time. It's not like I lack options besides you." Chloe cried even harder, her eyes tear-filled and blurry like a lotus swaying in the wind and rain. Marcus sighed, finally holding her in his arms, feeling a touch of sympathy. "Besides the title of Mrs. Marcus and my love, I'll give you anything you want. What more could you be unsatisfied with?" He wiped away her pathetic tears with his thumb. "If you cry anymore, you won't be pretty." Chloe sniffled, hugging his waist. "Then you have to compensate me." Marcus's expression was indulgent. "Okay, then kiss me." Marcus smiled, lowered his head and kissed her lips. Chloe blushed, reaching her hand inside his shirt. Soon improper sounds came from the room. Grace took a deep breath, took out her phone, captured this scene through the crack in the door, then turned and left without a ripple. However, the fingertips hanging by her side were already digging deeply into her palm. Whether her heart hurt or not, it no longer mattered. Soon everything would be over. Grace's body was fine. She was discharged from the city hospital the day she woke up. When she was discharged, Chloe's text message was more punctual than anything. This time it was from the hospital room. "I said no. But he still kept going at me." The accompanying image didn't faze Grace because the video on her phone was much clearer. Marcus' call came in. He apologized, saying, "Baby, I can't leave the company right now. I'll have the driver take you home first. How about I make it up to you tonight?" Grace replied with an expressionless and hung up the phone. Marcus had been exceptionally busy lately, always calling Grace to apologize, his excuses invariably about urgent company projects or business trips. Only he didn't know that every time he hung up the phone, Chloe would send provocative videos. His so-called business trips were merely prolonged trysts in another woman's bed. Grace indifferently went along with his every lie, which precisely gave her the time to prepare for her departure. The day before her departure, Grace packed all the photos and couples items related to him into a suitcase. Dragging the suitcase, she arrived at the rental they had once shared. The one-bedroom apartment, receiving no sunlight, was dim and damp, and even the restroom was so narrow it could only accommodate one person. After Marcus successfully started their business, he bought this apartment, saying it was for remembrance. He also said that when their child grew up, he would bring him back every year to remember their humble beginnings. Grace opened the windows to air the place out, then proceeded to burn every single photo from the suitcase. The photos turned to ash, and their 5 years together ended at that moment. As for the things that couldn't be burned, Grace personally smashed them, leaving them shattered on the floor. After finishing everything, Grace left the rental. When she returned to the mansion, Marcus was eagerly waiting at the door like a large dog. Seeing her get out of the car, he hurried over, wrapping her in a shawl. "Where have you been, Grace? Why weren't you answering your phone? It's so cold. You should wear more." Grace calmly walked inside, wrapped in the shawl. "Just dealing with some rubbish." "Why are you back?" said Marcus, gently running his hand through Grace's hair. "What kind of rubbish do you need to handle yourself? Next time just leave it to me. I'll take care of it for you." Grace said nothing. After changing her shoes, she saw the table laden with dinner. Marcus put away the shoes Grace had taken off. "Have you forgotten what day it is, silly goose?" Oh, it was the 5th anniversary of their relationship. Marcus pulled out a chair, gently pressed Grace's shoulders, seating her. "Baby, happy 5th anniversary." He magically produced a valuable necklace from behind his back and fastened it around Grace's neck. "I found someone to pick a good date. A week from now is an auspicious day. How about we get married then?" Grace looked up at him. "A week from now?" Marcus gently tapped Grace's nose with his fingertip, smiling languidly and lovingly. "I know the timing is a bit rushed, but my desire to marry you is even more urgent. But don't worry, you don't need to trouble yourself with any wedding details, big or small. For years, I've been preparing for this marriage. As for you, just relax at home, try on wedding dresses, and prepare to become Mrs. Marcus. All right?" Grace looked up, meeting his affectionate gaze steadily, desperately wanting to tell him no. She also wanted to tell him that he would never get to see her in a wedding dress. "I just remembered there are still dishes on the stove." Marcus quickly headed to the kitchen, not seeing the phone light up on the table. Grace had never checked his phone, but to show his loyalty to her, all his passwords were her birthday. So Grace easily accessed it. Inside was a message from Chloe. "Marcus, darling, are you really not coming tonight? It's my safe period." There was also a photo of her in a bunny costume, looking innocent. It was incredibly sensual. Before he came out, Grace put the phone back in its place. Meanwhile, a text message came in on Grace's phone. Still Chloe's provocations. She seemed to delight in it. And this time it's the hotel's presidential suite. "Marcus, darling, got me an annual membership here. I really love the floor-to-ceiling windows. Guess if he'll spend your 5th anniversary with you, or enjoy the pleasure of the floor-to-ceiling windows with me, baby. Happy 5th anniversary to us." Marcus came out of the kitchen with the last dish, still wearing an apron that Grace had bought. Grace quickly closed her phone, glanced over the dinner on the table, and feeling she couldn't keep up the act any longer, stood up to leave. Marcus saw Grace's displeasure and suddenly hugged her anxiously from behind. "Baby, did I do something wrong to make you unhappy? Tell me, and I'll change." "Okay." Grace looked at his anxious expression for a long time, then softly asked him, "Marcus, do you really love me?" He barely hesitated. "Of course I love you, Grace, more than I love myself. If I didn't have you, I'd rather die." He even raised a finger and swore earnestly. Grace couldn't help but laugh out loud, eventually laughing until her stomach hurt and tears streamed down her face. He thought Grace was happy and was about to embrace her again and say more sweet nothings. But his phone suddenly rang. Grace immediately broke free from his grasp and said, "Your phone is ringing." Marcus picked up his phone and after seeing the caller ID, his eyes became shifty. Taking the phone, he said something outside in the yard. Then he walked back to Grace, his face full of apologies. "Baby, there's a problem with the project. I need to go to the site." Grace's lips twitched. She wiped away the tears from her laughter and immediately said, "Go on, Ben. Go to your work." Marcus continued to apologize. "I'm sorry, baby. You have to spend our anniversary alone. How about Honey makes it up to you tomorrow?" Grace nodded with extreme gentleness and understanding. "Okay." Grace had booked a flight for tomorrow afternoon. He probably wouldn't be able to make it up to her. He yelled quickly, probably impatient because of Chloe's bunny costume. He didn't see Grace take off the necklace. He didn't notice anything amiss with her, and wouldn't know that this was her last day with him. After tonight, Grace would disappear from Emerald City. No matter how powerful he was, he wouldn't be able to find her. Marcus had forever lost Grace. He wouldn't find her again. On her last day of departure, Grace sold the designer gown he had once given her to a luxury consignment store. The money she received, along with the jewelry he had given her, was all donated to a charity. As for the screenshots of the messages Chloe had sent Grace on her phone, Grace printed them all out and left them on the living room table. The photos and videos were also edited, then sent via email to Marcus with a copy sent to all employees of QM Enterprises, scheduled for the moment her plane took off. As for the shares she held, they were originally part of what belonged to Grace. When she started the business with him, Grace endured no less hardship than he did. So when she sold them at a low price to Marcus' competitor, there was no trace of reluctance or guilt in her heart. Grace had always held grudges. If anyone hurt her, she would not let them off easy, let alone the man she had loved unreservedly and deeply for 5 years. Grace's battered heart needed solace. After signing, the money arrived in Grace's personal account. She took her suitcase and went to the Metropolitan. Her phone vibrated continuously. By this time, Marcus must have known about Grace selling the shares. The broadcast announced that the flight was about to depart. Grace slipped back one last time at the bustling Metropolitan, tossed her phone SIM card into the trash can, and walked into the plane cabin. Goodbye, Marcus. Never again, Marcus. What are you talking about? This is my company. I'm telling all of you to get out. Ethan was sitting on the recliner in Marcus's office, casually spinning around. A document was tossed onto the desk. Grace has already sold 60% of her shares to me. I now hold more shares than you do. From now on, I am the CEO of QM Enterprises. Please leave my office. Marcus incredulously flipped through the document. Seeing the signature at the end, he staggered back 2 steps, frantically calling her. However, only a cold automated message played. We are sorry. The number you have dialed is currently unavailable. Just then a message popped up in his email. It was from Grace. Marcus seemed to realize something and clicked on it with a trembling hand. The video played a series of scandalous blushing scenes, causing his pupils to contract repeatedly. The next second, he ignored Ethan and rushed out of the office like a madman. People in the office who had seen the email subtly glanced at him. The chatter was even more piercing. So Marcus' deep affection for Miss Grace was all an act. He'd already been keeping the other woman on the side for ages. Miss Grace is so beautiful, and she went through thick and thin with him for so many years. But in the end, her devotion was misplaced. Men are such scoundrels. The grass is always greener on the other side. Marcus didn't care what these people said about him. At that moment his heart was racing uncontrollably, and he sped home running several red lights. Seeing the empty mansion, his heart felt as if a large chunk had been suddenly gouged out. Grace. Marcus stumbled upstairs, desperately opening every room in the mansion one by one. But there was no sign of Grace. Even in the bedroom, bathroom, dressing room, and study, her clothes, jewelry, toiletries, cosmetics, everything related to her, had vanished into thin air like a dream, without even a single strand of hair left behind. Every place where her belongings used to be was now completely empty. The photos of them together in the album were gone, leaving only his solo pictures, and the frame on the nightstand was also empty. Marcus' dark eyes trembled, and clutching the empty photo frame with both hands, his knees gave out, and he collapsed to the floor, his gaze unfocused. An overwhelming surge of panic pressed down on his nerves. This can't be. This can't be. You wouldn't be so heartless. He instinctively denied the reality he saw with his own eyes. He took out his phone and called his assistant. Seal off Emerald City. Thoroughly check all Metropolitan and Central. If you see Grace, detain her at all costs. Grace is an orphan. She can't survive without me. She must still be in Emerald City. Hanging up the phone, Marcus emerged from the room looking distraught. As he went downstairs, he unexpectedly tumbled down the stairs. He tried to stand, but his legs had no strength. Marcus slumped there, hot tears streaming uncontrollably from his eyes. The empty living room echoed with the muffled, choked sobs of a man. A gust of wind swept through, scattering the papers on the table. A few landed in front of Marcus. Seeing the chat logs on the printed papers, Marcus' eyes were bloodshot. Each chat log felt like a heavy hammer relentlessly striking his head. And her last indifferent reply was like a sharp blade piercing directly into Marcus' heart, tearing it to bloody shreds. It left him in agony. Her last reply to Chloe was, "I wish you a harmonious marriage and many children and grandchildren." She had known his trembling secret all along, yet continued to play along with his supposedly flawless act. If he had been more observant and realized her distress sooner, if Chloe had known her place, would everything have been different? It was all that wretch's fault. Marcus gritted his teeth, clambered up from the floor, and stormed out of the mansion. Chloe was sitting on the sofa wearing the latest Chanel fashion, which Marcus had bought for her. Besides that, several 100,000 bags and many luxury clothes were on the table. "Sweetheart, did your boyfriend buy all this for you? It's not cheap. All this together must be millions." Chloe's younger brother Kevin, his eyes gleaming with greed, said, "Sis, your boyfriend is so rich. You really need to hold on to this wealthy catch." Chloe lifted her chin, feeling they were unsophisticated. "This is nothing. My boyfriend is the CEO of QM Enterprises worth billions. When I become Mrs. Marcus, what will all this money matter?" Kevin asked. "But didn't the news say he has a fiancée?" Chloe scoffed. "That is like a dead fish in bed. I'll soon make Marcus dump her." Chloe spoke with full confidence, but unexpectedly, a sudden slap made her dizzy. Coming to her senses, she saw Marcus, his eyes bloodshot. Chloe clutched her face. "Marcus, darling," she said, but received another resounding slap. This time Chloe was knocked directly to the floor, dazed. Kevin and Carol quickly went to help her up, recognizing him as the big boss from the news, Chloe's benefactor. They didn't dare to act rashly. "Marcus, darling, why did you hit me?" Chloe looked bewildered at the cold-faced Marcus. Marcus's fists clenched so tightly that his entire arm and chest trembled continuously. "Didn't I warn you that Grace shouldn't know about us? Didn't I warn you that if anything happened to Grace, I would make your life a living hell?" Chloe continued to play dumb. "I don't know what you're talking about." The next second, Marcus violently slammed the printed chat logs onto her face. The papers cut her cheek. "Chloe, what kind of trash are you to dare flaunt yourself in front of Grace?" Chloe saw the chat logs. Her face turned pale, and she began to sob dramatically, playing for sympathy. "Marcus, darling, I was wrong. I just love you too much. I wanted to be your only partner." Before she could finish, her slender neck was gripped tightly by his hand. She gasped for air. "Marcus, darling." The suffocating pain brought her closer to death than ever before. His eyes grew colder by the second, filled with palpable menace. "Grace is my only one. Chloe, who gave you the audacity to provoke Grace? She's more important than my own life. Who gave you the audacity to hurt her?" Chloe desperately pounded on his arms, her eyes filled with terror. Kevin and Carol immediately rushed forward, trying to push Marcus away. "Mr. Marcus, let go. You're going to strangle her to death." Marcus seemed not to hear them at all, muttering to himself, "If I strangle her to death, maybe Grace will come back." Chloe's face turned ashen with fear. Mustering her last bit of strength, she screamed, "Marcus, darling, I'm pregnant. I'm carrying your baby." Marcus's gaze fell to her abdomen, and his pupils constricted slightly. Chloe broke free while he was momentarily distracted, falling to the ground and violently coughing, clutching her neck. "So you're pregnant." Marcus was not as happy as she had imagined. His eyes were devoid of emotion, and his entire being exuded a bone-chilling coldness that terrified her. "How dare you, wretch, get pregnant?" Did she think a baby would be her ticket to replace Grace? "It was utterly laughable," Marcus said coldly. "Grace is the only woman who will ever bear my child." He yanked Chloe to her feet. "Go get rid of that baby." As long as the baby was gone, as long as he banished Chloe from Emerald City, everything would revert to how it had been. Grace would come back. Yes, that was it. Ignoring her frantic cries, Marcus shoved her into the car. "Marcus, darling, this is your baby. You can't make me get rid of it. You can't." Marcus grabbed her hair, his voice devoid of warmth. "This is a bastard child. Do you hear me? A bastard. Grace's child is the only one who will ever be mine." Terrified by his menacing presence, Chloe cowered back, frantically pounding on the car window. She couldn't believe the man who had been so tender in bed had transformed into such a mad, cold stranger in just one day. Help! Carol! Kevin! Someone! Please help me! Kevin rushed forward only to be knocked to the ground by a single punch from Marcus. Taro could do nothing but wail in despair. The commotion drew a crowd of onlookers. The police quickly arrived on the scene and pulled Chloe from the car. Mr. Marcus, you have no legal right to force her to terminate her pregnancy. Upon hearing the officer's words, Marcus fixed his gaze on Chloe. Then a chilling smile slowly spread across his face. Fine, then let her have it. With a single phone call, Marcus instructed his people to reclaim every bag and piece of jewelry he had ever given Chloe. Chloe was once again reduced to a struggling student from a humble background. Stripped of her money, Kevin couldn't stop grumbling. Now what? My wedding fund and a house are gone. I told you to get an abortion. Why didn't you just do it? Did you honestly believe that having his child would make that big boss marry you? Without money, Carol's expression grew more sour with each passing day. You utterly useless girl. You can't keep a man and you can't even hold on to money. What good are you? Chloe cradled her abdomen, her eyes wide with utter helplessness. At first she thought Marcus was merely trying to scare her. But later, when her calls to Marcus went unanswered, when she found she'd been blocked on WhatsApp and had completely lost all contact with him, she finally realized Marcus wasn't kidding. Yet she still clung to a sliver of hope. She couldn't believe that once the child was born, Marcus would truly abandon his own flesh and blood. For a full month, Marcus searched relentlessly, practically turning all of Emerald City upside down. But there was no sign of Grace, no word at all. She had vanished, disappearing from his world completely with an air of absolute finality. When his assistant finally found Marcus, he was in his mansion, clutching the bedding to him, utterly lost in a drunken stupor. His hair had grown long enough to obscure his eyes. His chin was covered in stubble, and all traces of his former vibrant spirit were gone. Mr. Marcus, we still haven't found Miss Grace. The assistant kicked aside a discarded wine bottle and approached him. Marcus' lifeless eyes no longer held any spark. He just clutched the bedding tightly, where a faint trace of Grace's scent still lingered. The assistant watched him, sighing deeply. If only he had known this day would come, he might not have acted as he did. However, we did discover that Miss Grace visited this apartment before her departure. The assistant handed him the address. Marcus saw the address, and a flicker of life returned to his eyes. He stumbled to his feet, staring fixedly at the paper. Seeing his drunken state, the assistant kindly drove him to the apartment. Upon reaching the apartment, Marcus found no sign of Grace, only a floor covered in ashes. A suffocating pain seized his throat. He carefully picked up a corner of a photograph, revealing only half of Grace's face. It was the only thing she had left behind. He fell to his knees, pressing the photo to his chest with both hands, his heart throbbing with an uncontrollable ache. Grace, you are truly so cruel. Grace, where in the world are you? He choked out her name again and again, but no one was there to care. The assistant handed him his resignation. Mr. Marcus, Miss Grace is gone. You won't find her. You need to pull yourself together. The company is now in Ethan's hands, barely clinging to life, facing utter collapse. Our employees are leaving one by one. Marcus continued to murmur Grace's name, as if he hadn't heard a word the assistant said. The assistant sighed, placed the resignation on the table, stood and left. Suddenly Marcus coughed up a mouthful of blood onto the floor. As he collapsed, his eyes fell upon a ring. The ring was stained with blood. He carefully retrieved the ring from the ashes, then meticulously wiped it clean with his clothing. Engraved inside the band were the words, "Chin is the heart of Y." Anjo Grace was Marcus's heart. Marcus hunched his back, clutching the ring to his chest with such force that the veins on his hands bulged and his entire body trembled uncontrollably. Grace, so you knew all along. Grace, you are so incredibly cruel. From the very day I proposed, you were already planning to leave me. Grace, I know I made a mistake. Please come back to me. Please, I'm begging you. Come back. In that same year, QM Enterprises declared bankruptcy. Far away in the capital city, I learned the news from a broadcast. I swirled the red wine in my hand, my gaze falling indifferently on the TV screen. He had once said that the company's name was inextricably linked, just as we would be together forever. Now he and I had parted ways, and the company had also met its end in Emerald City. Just then, someone gently draped a shawl over my shoulders. "Do you know him?" the man asked me softly. I adjusted the shawl, pulling my gaze from the screen, and didn't hide the truth. "He's my ex-boyfriend." The man paused for a beat, then looked at me intently. "Do you still love him?" I shook my head without hesitation. "No, I don't. Call me cold-blooded. Call me heartless. It makes no difference to me." The moment Marcus hurt me, I had consciously and clearly detached myself. Life is too short to waste it on someone undeserving. I love those who love me and I kick those who hurt me. That's my philosophy on love. The man's lips curved into a relieved smile. "The Inu families have a project in Emerald City that requires us both to go," Daniel said, carefully observing my expression. I parted my lips to ask him, "Is it absolutely necessary for me to go personally?" Daniel chose his words carefully. "The project is quite important, and it would be best if you attended personally. However, if you're truly unhappy about it, I can go alone." Daniel was my intended partner in this strategic alliance marriage, and he was flawless in every aspect. I couldn't say I particularly liked him nor disliked him. My feelings for him were as calm as still water. But if my family required it, I would of course go very well. It was snowing the day we arrived in Emerald City. I was wearing a red velvet mermaid gown. As I walked, the skirt flowed like cascading ripples around my legs. Daniel and I arrived at the project site, and after the inspection we exited the building. At the entrance I saw Marcus. Grace. 3 months apart, and Marcus looked as if he had aged a decade. Dawn was his former vibrant spirit. His eyes, now glistening with tears, watched my retreating figure as security mercilessly held him back 10 meters away. "Grace, you're back. Grace, I've missed you so terribly." He had searched the entire world for her, nearly depleting all his wealth, driven almost mad by his longing. But what he didn't know was that I had hired specialized hackers to protect my privacy, ensuring he would never find me easily. I merely swept a detached glance over him, as if he were a stranger. Then I adjusted my black overcoat and walked away, my high heels clicking on the pavement. "Grace!" Marcus yelled and struggled desperately to break free. He was pushed roughly to the ground by the security guards. "Let go of me. That's my fiancée. Let me go." "His fiancée?" The security guard scoffed. "She's certainly not your fiancée. Miss Grace is the sole daughter of the Tang family in the capital city, the heir to Tang. Her strategic alliance marriage partner is from the Gu family, one of capital city's foremost influential families." Marcus froze as if struck by lightning, watching Grace's departing figure in stunned numbness. A tall, imposing man took off his overcoat and gently draped it around her shoulders. Impossible. It couldn't be. Grace was an orphan just like him. How could she possibly be the Tang family's eldest daughter? There must be some mistake. "Grace. Grace." His desperate cries couldn't even earn him a sidelong glance from the woman. Marcus was forcibly removed from the premises. Chloe, visibly pregnant, hurried to help him up. She still murmured manipulative words. "Marcus, darling, Grace must have found a new wealthy patron. That's why she won't acknowledge you." Even though QM Enterprises had gone bankrupt, Marcus still held considerable wealth and multiple mansions in his name. News of Chloe's affair had spread to the school, resulting in her expulsion. Chloe's only hope now was Marcus, so she clung to his side relentlessly. A sharp slap cracked across her face. Marcus slapped her forcefully to the ground, his eyes bloodshot. "I forbid you to speak of her like that." Chloe's cheek immediately swelled red, her eyes practically blazing with jealousy. "So what if I say it? What are you going to do? Do you actually think you're still the old Marcus? You're a wretch. If you loved her so much, then why did you sleep with me all those times? You just couldn't keep your pants on. She doesn't want you and you deserve it. Marcus, you're stuck with me for life." "Haha." Chloe's words enraged Marcus. He lunged forward and slapped her repeatedly, brutally. Chloe screamed and held her mouth, which was bleeding, and a searing pain pulsed through her lower abdomen. Until someone yelled, "She's bleeding. The pregnant woman is bleeding." Marcus was pulled away by concerned onlookers. Chloe had already fainted from the intense pain. Sitting in the car witnessing this scene, I slowly rolled up the car window. To my surprise, Chloe had indeed gotten pregnant, just as she'd wished. It seemed unlikely she would keep the baby, but what did it matter to me? "Let's go," I murmured, and Daniel drove away from the scene. In the rearview mirror, Marcus was chasing after the car like a madman, falling and scrambling back to his feet, his knees now a bloody mess. Daniel asked, "If he keeps chasing us like this, he'll get himself run over. Are you sure you don't want to go down and check on him?" In the end, I got out of the car. Pure white snow settled on my black shawl as I looked down at the man who once claimed to love me more than life itself. "Grace, I've missed you so much. Grace, please come back to me, won't you?" He clung desperately to my leg, pleading tearfully, his blood staining the hem of my gown. But I uttered two cold words. "No, I won't." Marcus's face was ashen. "Why is it just because I cheated?" He immediately promised, his voice filled with earnest pleading. "I'll never dare to do it again. Never again. Can't we just start over?" In our 5 years together, Marcus had always been arrogant and perfectly in control of every situation. I curled my lips into a faint smile. But why on earth would I want a dog that eats its own vomit? I told him, each word deliberate and clear. "Marcus, you were the one who pushed me away with your own hands. From this moment forward, it doesn't matter how many women you desire. It will have absolutely nothing to do with me. And naturally, my future and whoever I choose to be with will also have nothing to do with you." I kicked his hand away and got back into the car. Marcus fell clumsily to the ground, momentarily stunned by the impact of my words. "Grace, can we just go back to how things were? Grace, please just give me one more chance." Marcus violently pounded on the car window. I slowly closed my eyes. Daniel turned on the car's music system, and soft melodies played, effectively drowning out the heart-wrenching cries from outside the vehicle. The car sped away. Chloe's child couldn't be saved, and she even lost her uterus. How could Kevin's family ever forgive Marcus? They gathered a dozen family members and friends from their hometown and went to confront Marcus, demanding accountability. They demanded Marcus pay them compensation. During an altercation with them, he and Kevin accidentally fell from an upper floor. Kevin was partially paralyzed from the fall, condemned to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. As for Marcus, from that day forward he seemed to have completely lost his mind. Whenever he saw a girl whose build resembled Grace's, he would eagerly call out, "Grace!" and fall to his knees begging for her forgiveness. Passers-by, startled and disturbed, would call the police. Later, Marcus was committed to the psychiatric hospital. His remaining assets were split. A portion went to compensate Kevin's family for medical expenses, and the rest covered the psychiatric hospital's treatment fees. It snowed again that day. He sat thinly dressed in the courtyard, snow dusting his shoulders and hair. Marcus carefully stroked the wedding ring, murmuring, "Grace, I found the ring. This time I won't lose it ever again. Never again."